Alright, so welcome back to the CICD tutorial. If you're listening to this video, you ran into some sort of permissions error and you want to learn about how to add variables into your GitLab CI job in order to set up permissions. So we want to learn about how to give the CI job private information, but we don't want to give it to everybody else. So we don't want to put this into the YAML file. So let's go ahead into the get into the spy game section. So, if you were getting an error like this, for example, where you see server responded with an error, and that's because your file isn't publicly accessible, we need to give the CI/CD access to our data. This is a good thing and it makes it easier to work with. So let's go ahead and get this working. So what I'm going to do now is talk about access control. So the access control is done by what we're going to do is base64 encode our password and our password. And we want to base64 encode it because we want to make sure that special characters are passed in right when dealing with this complex backend that GitLab CI runs on. So as you can see here, I have this little line here but effectively will echo out the service pass. It'll pass it through base64 to decode it and then pass it into Kerberos init so that we can initialize the certain user with the correct password and get a Kerberos token to access files from EOS or some non-public area. So there are lots of different ways that you can run this locally as well, but we're going to go ahead and set things up. So I have a lot of links here in the tutorial about how to set up a service account and how to make a service account. I generally suggest if you are concerned to make a service account because this allows you to create an account separate from you so that way if your service account credentials are compromised, you simply need to block the services. You need to deactivate or block the service account from access rather than your own account, which is going to be a little bit harder to get back. So there are lots of different ways you can define variables here. There are two main ways really are predefined variables as well as custom variables. So predefined variables is something that GitLab CI provides for you by default. If I click this link here to look at the predefined variables, you can see that there's a lot of these variables set up for you by default. A lot of them are prefixed with the CI underscore, meaning the continuous integration is solved. And as you can see, there's a lot of different ones, and we're not going to go over every single one. And in fact, we don't want to use a predefined variable. What we want to do instead is set up a custom variable. So I'm going to go back to my project here. On the left hand side, I have settings for CI/CD, which is under the gear. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And under CI/CD, we can expand to see these variables. So we can go ahead and add a variable in. So the first variable that I want to add in here is going to be the CERN user. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and put in my user account. Whoops, CERN user gstark. And this will be a variable. All for now. We can choose to protect the variable, meaning on protected branches and tags only. For the purposes of this exercise, it's okay, we don't need to do that. And let's go ahead and click mask variable, but you can see we don't really need to mask the username because everybody knows it. And anyway, it wouldn't let me mask it because it needs to meet regular expressions. And it says here it must consist of characters from base64, must be a single line, must be 8 characters long. So I have a very short username, unfortunately, so that won't work. So let's go ahead back in and just do this again for real. Gstark, and let's add that variable. So you can go ahead and see that I added it in here as well. I can click reveal values just because I know that's a safe value. Now the next variable that we need to add in here is to add the service password. So I'm not actually going to do it on here. I'm going to go ahead and do it on a separate screen. And I'm going to go ahead and do we're going to create the service password. And the way I would do this is by doing something like this. Hunter42 base 64. And this will give me a base 64 variable that encodes it. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here. So we're going to create this. I will mask it and then add it. And we're good to go. Alright, so now that everything's masked, we're going to go ahead and uh, say, since everything's already saved, we're going to go ahead to the, where is it? Pipelines. So we're going to go back to that merge request, back to the pipelines, and a pipeline that had failed. We can go ahead and click to retry it. If I expand the window out a little bit more, it's not there. Anyway, some of these pipelines you can see have a retry button. So if your pipeline failed because of access permissions, you can go ahead and retry it now that we've added the variables in, and maybe it'll work. But you have to remember that just adding the variables in alone won't do the trick. And what we actually need to do is to um, actually use the service password. So let's go ahead to the GitLab YAML. And we're going to go ahead and let's see here. Where is my scheme? So before script here, you can go back to the tutorial in the browser so you can see what I'm doing. Right here. We're going to run this line in. So we're going to want to do printf service pass base 64d knet cern user as cern.ch. And now that we've added that in, we can go ahead and just GitLab and then commit knet for access control. And things should work. And that should just work, but for those of you who are using publicly accessible files, you won't notice anything different. But now that we've gone ahead and we've just used these custom environment variables in our CI job, and that's pretty much it. Alright. And so that's it. For those of you who are in it for the access control, that's all we had to do here. The very last thing that we need to do is to add artifacts. So as you can see here, we want to add artifact to the scim.ggh, which saves the scim.ggh.root file and will expire that artifact in a week. And that should do the trick. I will go ahead, stage, commit, and push. And if I refresh here, we should have everything working. That looks great. Alright, so everything should be working, and that is entirely it with environment variable. If you have any more questions about this, you should look at these helpful links that I provided here. Note that service accounts will provide this extra layer of security between the outside world and your account, and environment variables in GitLab CI/CD allow you to hide this protected information from others who can see your code. And if I can go in here, because we added the K in it for access, I can look in here and see what's happening. And that's still running. And you can see that once the log file expands, we won't actually see the Kerberos password showing up in here at all. And even if it did, you couldn't echo it out directly because it got masked, as you remember. And so that's the nice thing about using these environment variables. It also makes your code a little bit more generalizable so that you can fork this and set up your own environment variable with your own username and password, and things should genuinely work. Let's go ahead and wait for these Docker images to pull. There's always such a large Docker image. Hmm. Hmm. Let's see a slow train in the meantime. Alright, so you can see here that it throws in the password for it, but you can't see it at all. And we're good to go. So things are running. Alright, so that's it for this section. I'll see you next time.